4 was a wild one with 9 games decided by 7 points or less, and all 9 decided in the final 2 minutes or overtime, including 7 in the final minute or OT, while 4 of those games ended on the final play. Time to find out if Week 5 will be just as drama-filled as we preview tonight's Patriots-Bucs game and 13 other games this weekend as the OFN on PSN starts now. All right, thanks for tuning in to the Ourlads Football Radio Network as we preview Week 5 in the NFL with Tony Mejia, an independent sports columnist and exclusive handicapper at VegasInsider.com. So, Tony, it was a pretty crazy week in the NFL for the NFL. How was it for you?
I was decent, definitely better than the previous week, which was wilder. I mean, it seems like we get these crazy weeks now on the regular, which is good. And you know, as we progress through the months, we'll see if the early call of parity reigning ends up bringing true. Because I know when we started this season, you were very concerned about the Patriots just running roughshod through the league. And
that's right.
That has not been the case, obviously.
So far, it hasn't. That's really at all. And I think everybody is paying full attention to that. Like, wait a second, do we really have a chance to win the Super Bowl this year, to make the playoffs this year, and to compete against the Patriots? Because that's exactly what's going on, or at least that's the way it looks now. And of course, they got the game tonight against the Bucs, and so that's very interesting to get the Patriots on a Thursday night in a road game when they're 2-2, and so there's a lot to digest there. But interesting that. You would think when the season began that maybe if there was only one undefeated team in the league, it would be the Patriots. Remember, a lot of people were talking, the Patriots, could they go undefeated? Even though the Chiefs are the only undefeated team left in the NFL, the two teams last year that started the season 4-0, Denver and Minnesota, did not even make the postseason. So how about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Minnesota fell apart physically, and then it was surprising to see Denver. I mean, they never got consistent quarterback play, and you wonder if that comes up this season for them. But I mean, to me, look, the offense has done enough for New England to be 4-0.
Yes,
they fell up. It was the defense that fell apart against Kansas City.
Yep.
Obviously, if they beat Kansas City, the Chiefs aren't undefeated. And then last week against Carolina, same deal. We wondered going into the Texans game. Yes, you had that first game, and Alex Smith played out of his mind.
Sure.
Then you had Drew Brees, so you can give him the benefit of the doubt after that. But once Deshaun Watson slices you up,
a rookie,
and then Cam Newton in the biggest slump of his life, comes and gets hanged 33 on you.
That's right.
They're a major issue.
Yeah, now it's not just a couple of games or matchups. Now there's something going on there, and because Brady's got 10 touchdowns, no interceptions. But he has been sacked 13 times. And I think part of the reason why I think that the offense maybe not – because even Brady looks a little off at times. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that they're not used to being in these high-scoring games all the time. This is what happens when you have to score 35 or whatever, because they're giving up – well, actually, they're number one in yards, by the way, by 60. 456 a game. By 60. So the 31st ranked team in total yards allowed, I believe, is at 394. They're at 60. And keep this in mind, the Bucs, their opponent this week, is 30th in yards. So as we go into this game, you got the Patriots as they're about a 5-point favorite. And everybody's talking about bad Patriots defenses, but they still have Brady. They're still able to score points, and the Bucs are also giving up a lot of yardage. And no Levante David, even though Hightower's playing for the Patriots, he's obviously not 100%. He's the best defensive player they have. That's part of the problem. They're not getting any pressure on the quarterback. So we should see a really fun game tonight. But now I love the Patriots with the odds going down to 5. See, we talked about the big spreads the last few weeks, but now at 5, I can't get enough of that spread.
Well, it started, I think, right around there, moved up to 6. Now it's back down to 5. And my oddsmaker buddy over at Bookmaker, Scott Cooley, he predicted that we would see this coming back down to 5 because of sharp money coming in on Tampa Bay actually.
Wow.
Because the betting public was all over New England, and the the rationale would be, well, this team's not going to lose two in a row.
Sure.
They're not going to fall to 2-3. It has happened 2001 this deep into the season, where the Patriots are under 500, which would be the case tonight, obviously, if they drop this one. And there's reason to like. The Bucs are banged up. You mentioned Levante David. He's doubtful, but probably won't play with a high ankle sprain. Quan Alexander's already been ruled out, so that's your two best linebackers that are going to be missing. Right now, both doubtful are safeties, T.J. Ward and Keith Handy.
Yep.
So that means they're going to have to plug somebody else back there that's not used to being back there, and Brady should be able to pick them apart. But on the other end, you haven't stopped anybody, and Doug Martin returns for Tampa Bay, and Jameis Winston has looked sharper. Definitely did his job last week in beating the Giants, both getting them in the field goal range, and his work earlier in the game and finding Mike Evans and Cam Brate.
Yeah, and by the way, also the Patriots, this is only their second road game, and they won and covered. It's the only cover they have this year is on the road, and this is something we do see a lot, especially with good teams, is sometimes when good teams are struggling, you go on the road and you come together as a team. You get away from the distractions of home. You go on the road. You're a more closely knit team, and for a few days. And that us against the world, being on the road kind of thing, national televised game. We got some pride here. I really like the Patriots. I can't stress enough. So maybe the Bucs are able to cover, but I'm not going to feel too bad about that if the Patriots win and don't cover, because as we talked about before, that doesn't happen very often. All right.
Patriots lose, sky falling?
Who's that?
If the Patriots lose, is the sky falling?
I don't think it would be any different this week than last week. No. I just think because this is a decent team, it's on the road, and so no.
I don't mean in that regard. I mean, if you're New England, then you're 2-3. You're looking up at Buffalo, who suddenly looks at least decent, and then the rest of the division, obviously, you have Miami and the Jets. Miami was terrible, but is panic, for lack of a better term.
Who's panicking?
Permeating in Foxborough.
No, I don't think so. I think it would take. I think the outside national media would, but I don't think they would panic yet, even if they lost tonight's game. I think that they would be like, wait a second, is this really happening? I think there would be a little bit of a wait, is this? Because I don't think any of that's even crept in just yet. But if they lose tonight, I think maybe more of wait, is maybe 2-4 Jets? Yeah, then it's time to panic. But 2-3, I think it'll be more of a shock thing. And anything, as long as they beat the Jets the next week and go 3-3, order kind of will be restored in Foxborough. So I think they understand what they've got there. They've got the best, Belichick Brady combo, and too early to panic. Okay. Let's go to some of the Sunday games, and let's first of all start with and there were some good ones. There's interesting this week that there's probably about a good 5 or 6 games, like real good games, and then you've got also only 2 games of division opponents. That's pretty rare to only have 2 games of division opponents. But let's go into the game. One of those top games on Sunday is Kansas City, as we mentioned. The only undefeated team left in the NFL. By the way, 4-0 straight up and against the spread. No question, Alex Smith is a big part of it. He's right now the best quarterback in football so far this season, hitting 76% of his passes. No turnovers at this point. No interceptions for Alex Smith. And they take on Houston. Of course, Houston, as you know, last week, they were like my team. And they're my team this year. I mean, I as I mentioned last week, I got them at 50-1 again to win the Super Bowl. They're down to about 28-1 now. So that's okay. If you didn't listen to me last week on the show to take them to win the Super Bowl at 50-1, 28-1 is still very good. So take them now, especially with the Patriots playing the way that they are. But Houston gets the big win. And with Watson, they've covered all 3 games. All as dogs. They're a slight dog here, and who knows what the line will go off by game day. These 2 teams have played a few times recently with a shutout 30-0 wild card win by the Chiefs a couple years ago. Houston got revenge in the regular season last year, 19-12. This has the makings of a really good Sunday night football game with a Monday night snoozer. But there's no reason I'm jumping off the Houston bandwagon just yet. And I am the one driving it, but I'm not gonna put pause on it just yet. I think there's a good spot for the Chiefs to go down, and the Houston's playing off the hook, and with the Chiefs a little bit banged up on the offensive line as well, and that Houston defense starting to pump up, I like Houston.
Well, I mean, yeah, you can't abort the mission if you're driving. You kill everybody that you invited on board. So, to me, it looks like they'll benefit from having the Chiefs on a short week, but I think Kansas City left a lot out there against Washington, especially once
Good point.
Once the injuries set in. I mean, you watch Andy Reid, especially if you're laying 7, and obviously that was the biggest fluke of the century.
Oh my goodness!
The Chiefs ending up covering, but bully for me because I was on the right side of that.
You were on the right side. I was on the wrong side. You were on the right side. But that's as historic as it gets. Those are the ones that you see like what 5 or 6 times a year.
Yeah, you those don't creep up often, and I'm like I said, always on the losing side of those. So it was set up interestingly enough to where there's 4 seconds left now, so at least there's a chance, and you figure they're going into desperation mode. But that all broke perfectly, including Justin Houston not just diving on the ball, but saying, "Hey, I'm going to push you off and I'm going to score, and, and thank you kindly."
Yeah.
So, but look, they left a ton out there because you have the Josh Norman injury at halftime. They're coming in with backup corners. Kelsey's separating the field to where you have one-on-one with both Wilson, who was phenomenal, and your the guy who Tyreek Hill, who basically gives you the most space out there. I think the way they use him, but right now they're using him as a decoy, is one of the quiet undertones of this season because they're using his speed as a weapon, and combined with Kelsey, it's really making Alex Smith look good. But it's a talented team, and it's going to be another great test against the Texans because you figure the Texans are going to show up defensively.
Yeah, and look, this is a very important game for Houston. I mean, record-wise, they still got work to do. So, I mean, look, it was a big win for them to beat a division rival. They didn't want to get separated by a couple of games that early in the season. But still, they know they got work to do record-wise, whereas the Chiefs not as desperate as Houston. Houston at home, nationally televised game. So we'll see. Okay, so that's one of the top games of the week to keep an eye on. But again, that is on Sunday night. We take a look at the Sunday game, and maybe would have been if they if they could have if what was it, NBC could have chosen the Dallas Green Bay game. They would have. I'm sure this was a situation where Fox said, "No, we're not giving this one up," and we get the right to hold on to several of those games. Otherwise, this I'm sure would have been the game of the week. Green Bay and Dallas. Rematch of the divisional round last year. Tremendous game. Packers just seem to have the Cowboys number. They've beaten them 6 out of 7 since 2009, including a couple of playoff games. Winning on the final play. Crosby, I believe he had a 56-yarder first. Then a few minutes later, the 51-yarder to win the game. Of course, the Aaron Rodgers crazy pass to who was that? Cook, maybe, who was made to play, or I forget who it was. Maybe it was the first good catch he had in his entire career. That set up the field goal. But anyway, Packers are 3-0 at home, 0-1 on the road. Cowboys are a very slight favorite in this one, and I can kind of see that, being the home team here. I get it. But I just don't like the way the Cowboys are playing. I still think this whole Ezekiel Elliott thing is just kind of hurting the whole chemistry of the team. They're just not right where I think they need to be. Now, Sean Lee didn't play last week, who probably their best defender, even though DeMarcus Lawrence is leading in sacks this year. Tyron Smith, we're hearing maybe he doesn't play. That's possible, and we know he's their best lineman. Even though the Packers, no Balaga, no Bakhtiari, but we don't know. Maybe one of these weeks they're going to be back, and even Daniels is out, but the Packers are winning without those guys, and I don't care that Jones is the running back. I think Jones will do just fine with Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback. So, you know what? I like the Packers here only because I'm looking at this game from a kind of point of view of we know how important it is for both teams. Neither team should fall asleep in this matchup, especially the Cowboys, because they're in a little bit more desperate mode than the Packers. But I get the feeling that the Packers, of course, know how important this game is too. And because of that, I think they're right now just a better team.
I agree the Packers are a better team, but I'm not including this in my contest picks that need to be in on Saturday morning because I'm going to need to wait probably till Sunday afternoon to figure out who's in. The
Yep.
injury you mentioned is huge. Smith dealing with back tightness. They'll insert Byron Bell in with your boy Lael Collins on the other side. Not going to be successful there.
No.
And Zeke's fighting off rib injuries. Essentially, these two teams have very similar situations with both tackles banged up. Bakhtiari and Bulaga, we'll see what their status for this game is. No Montgomery if he can't shake off the rib injury. I think Elliott's got a rib issue too. So to me, I've got to make that decision. And if both teams are banged up, you got to trust Aaron Rodgers over Dak.
That's true too. But yeah, a lot of those injuries. Keep an eye on that. We'll see. I mean, it's the Cowboys. That's a team that will be definitely thinking about is it time to panic if they lose this game with everything that's been going on. Even though it's a good team they'll be losing to, but with everything that's gone on with the Cowboys this season, if they go to 2-3 early on this season, it might be time for them to be, especially if the Eagles win. They might be a couple of games out early on in the season. Okay, next up, another good game to keep an eye on is Seattle and the Rams. This is one of those two divisional matchups this week. And we talked a little bit about this. We forewarned this possibility of what it could be if the Rams actually beat the Cowboys, and they did. We didn't think, or at least I didn't think they were going to do that. They did that, and I've been pretty complimentary about what the Rams and McVay have done. But what they did last week really did seal the deal for me. I think this team is now for real. I think that this is now their shot. If they can beat Seattle, then I think that they're going to be there all season. I do not think this is one of those things where, all right, 6 weeks later, Seattle's up by 2 games. No, I don't think so. I think the Rams are for real, but they need to prove that in a big divisional matchup here. They're a very slight favorite. Everything is going well for them. Goff's playing fantastic. He's only been sacked 4 times. That's what happens when you bring in Andrew Whitworth to solidify your line. Zerline has gone nuts, 7 for 7 last week, 14 for 14. He's kicking field goals. Farrell Cooper's returning kicks. So they've got every component of their team going. Now the defense, of course, all right, they got some players, but there's some issues there. But I don't think they have to worry about that with Seattle and that terrible offensive line. And Carson's now out for the year. So you know what? I like the Rams. I think they're going really well. And even though Seattle did blow out Indianapolis last week, and we talked about that possibility, I don't think it was that easy. If Andrew Luck had played, that game would have gone down to the wire. Brissett just gift wrapped a couple of easy scores that turned the tide of that game because that game was very close early in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, they were down at halftime. But look, the Seahawks are going to figure it out. I still haven't jumped off of my Super Bowl pick. Still have them as my champs.
Okay.
Clearly, the Carson injury is terrible. I will say that regardless of what happens in this game, I think the Rams are going to be there for the duration. I'm convinced. I had them as my lock of the week against the Cowboys and was happy to see them win straight up.
Awesome.
They ended up getting 5.5. And that was a situation where they were coming off a Thursday night game where, Dallas coming off a Monday nighter. It was almost gift wrap. And the cover for San Francisco and Arizona played out the same way. But look, in this matchup, I think you have Seattle going back on the road in a very similar situation to what they faced at Tennessee, an upstart team. And it was a game that was tight throughout. The final score was a little more cosmetic than it should have been because Tennessee really did take control in that second half. But all of these teams are going to try Seattle right now while they're the most vulnerable. And I think, you take that fighting spirit on the road if you're Richard Sherman and those guys. And that makes for a great matchup here to see if, the offense, which is clearly improved, can move the ball against them. And if they do, St. Louis wins LA wins in a runaway.
Yeah, of course, when Tennessee was able to put points up on the board against Seattle, they did it on the ground. Yes, the Rams have Gurley, but they're a balanced offensive team. They've scored 35 or more in 3 out of 4 games. And by the way, Seattle just 1-3 against the spread this year, 0-2 on the road. So, and that's something that has always helped Seattle is that they could always go home and with that crowd and go 7-1, 8-0 at home if they have a good team every year. And all they got to do is win a few road games and they're in the postseason, but they haven't been able to win one yet. By the way, the Rams had a 3-game win streak against Seattle, snapped the last time that these two teams played. So as we mentioned last week, the Rams have played Seattle very tough over the last few years. All right, let's move.
My key here is can you get Goff rattled early if you're the Seahawks defense? Because they're going to come.
Mm-hmm.
None of this is a fluke. Gurley looks fantastic,
Yes.
and he's more involved in the passing game. And then you've got Cooper Kupp running fantastic routes. He's seemingly always open. And right now, Sammy Watkins is playing like a goal.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. That's the thing. These are legitimate players. There's only one guy that you go, well, and that's Goff. And if Goff plays well with all the veteran talent, even if it's again, I consider Gurley a veteran by now. These are talented players, very talented players. And the quarterback plays well, and we know in the NFL that really drives the engine more than any other sport, besides maybe I don't know, a superstar in the NBA. Okay, let's move on to a really good under-the-radar matchup with all the other good matchups going on. 3-1 Carolina, 3-1 Detroit, and I guess because of what's gone on the last 24 hours, will Cam Newton and his big mouth hurt their preparation, be a distraction? That's always possible. Just when it looked like he was getting his game back and Devin Funchess had a big game and Benjamin, and you say to yourself, wow, look at how good this offense could be if Newton's playing well and you have McCaffrey and you got Benjamin and you have Funchess and they're doing it without Olsen, but you just and Khalil. And you go, all right, well, this is something, but we'll see. We'll see whether or not the distractions come into play here for a Detroit team that had a nice defensive win against the Vikings on the road last week. Keep in mind, Detroit 3-1 against the spread this year, but all of those games as dogs, they have been dogs in 7 straight games dating back to last year. First time they were a favorite in their last 8 games. They're a very short favorite, right around 2-3 in this one against Carolina. And, well, as far as this game is concerned, I think Detroit's been a little bit more consistent than Carolina, overall offense, defense, and everything, and even on special teams. But you just don't know because Cam Newton, he's the difference maker with this offense. Of course, I'm a big Stafford fan, but if Newton's going the way he was last week, even though I'm not sure he can do that against Detroit's defense compared to New England's, then okay, maybe Carolina, but I don't know. I mean, this is a real close game. I'm not even sure I'm going to be able to take this game because I'm not even sure where I'm leading at this point.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think Khalil's availability means a lot more than Cam being a jackass and taking it back to caveman days with his Archie Bunker stance. That'll blow over. And in the locker room, it's not going to fester. I don't think the Antonio Brown, Ben Roethlisberger thing festers either, but that has more of a chance than this. This is an offhand comment.
They're not playing with any girls.
This, but it's not going to affect the team. And we'll obviously get to the Steelers later. But from this standpoint, I think you hit it on the head more with can he do this against the Lions? When he had a vacation against the Patriots, and that's really the only game that he's looked remotely good. And so, to me, I think he still has a lot to overcome if Khalil's not there snapping on the ball.
All right. Next, speaking of Pittsburgh and Jacksonville. And look, we talked about this last week, and I'm going to just keep saying it. And maybe with what happened to Antonio Brown is not surprising based on what we've been talking about is that even though Pittsburgh is winning, there's something going on with the offense. They're just not looking crisp. And
Roethlisberger.
Well, that's the thing, and apparently that's why Antonio Brown's kind of upset. And I guess if there's a little bit of is he really checked out kind of thing? Is he not really concentrating? Is he not? The whole thing about when you're thinking of retiring, you're already retired. Already get all that. So that's the thing that we just I mean, is that gonna stop? Will 1 week, maybe it'll all click back to Roethlisberger or not, or is this going to continue? Because if this continues like this, they're not going to go far. This just can't continue like this.
Yeah, in week 1 he wasn't sharp. He was the reason they lost to the Bears. He clearly missing and leaving points out there. I don't think it was an isolated incident. And obviously Antonio Brown is wide open on a play that it was a specific counter to something that they anticipated the Ravens doing, and you're a Hall of Fame quarterback who lives for these moments, take advantage of the one play you've been game planning all week. I understand Brown's frustration. I thought Ryan Clark's comments this week were enlightening in that he said, well, this is who Antonio Brown is in terms of a me guy, but everybody knows that in Pittsburgh, so it's not going to affect the team. It's just Antonio being Antonio. And through all that, who's the betting favorite for the Super Bowl this year? Well, right now, this week, it was New England as the favorite since before the last Super Bowl. Now it's Pittsburgh.
Well, they're an 8.5-point favorite in this game, right around that number, against the Jags, who are now back in their traditional role as a dog. So that trend we talked about last week worked. But Jacksonville, look, Bortles just is still way too inconsistent. A 54% completion percentage is pretty terrible. I mean, I think only Kaiser's as bad as that. So yeah, that the offense is just not where it needs to be. With Allen Robinson out, they have to count. I mean, Marquise Lee was terrible last week. He almost single-handedly cost them the game with the drop early in overtime, and then the muff punt late in overtime. So they've got some issues in the passing game. You can't rely on Fournette all day long. And now Linder is banged up a little bit. He's probably their best lineman. But I can easily see Pittsburgh winning this game and us talking next week about, okay, Pittsburgh won again, but it wasn't all that great. I mean, so because I don't think they have to play great to beat Jacksonville this week. It is a big number though, and Jacksonville's defense has been better in the passing game. As opposed
They've been great.
Yeah, as opposed to the rush. So we would expect Le'Veon Bell to get a heavy workload again this week, which worked out for him last week against Baltimore.
Right. I mean, look, we're going to see how Roethlisberger reacts. I think that's more important than how Antonio Brown does, because he's facing a secondary that has shut down everybody. I mean, they're leading the NFL in pass defense, and a lot of that is who they played. Certainly last week helped, and what they did against Joe Flacco in London. But yeah, I mean, if Ramsey and that secondary are able to slow down the passing game, then we can see more finger pointing at Ben if this game's closer than it's anticipated.
Yeah, I must say I don't think this is a bad money line play. I think this is a money line play that I might actually consider doing. So because I haven't looked, but I'm probably getting somewhere close to 3-1, I would think, on the money line.
Yeah, if Bortles wasn't so bad, I definitely get behind it. I mean, he caused that not only the win, but the cover with this terrible play at the goal line. Has multiple opportunities to get the ball in after the holding penalty brings the first touchdown back, and for whatever reason can't get the ball over the defensive lineman.
Yeah,
I mean, there are a lot of rumors about why he struggled, but his execution leaves a lot to be desired.
And Gilbert, who's been out a few weeks, really hasn't cost the Steelers, so keep that in mind. Not sure if he's going to play this week either. And against that Jacksonville defensive line, that could be something to keep an eye on. All right, let's move on. And we've got a matchup of the Eagles and Arizona to talk about. And the Eagles are about a 6-point favorite in this game. Arizona, even though these two teams are not in the same division, Arizona has beaten the Eagles 6 straight times since 2009, both straight up and against the spread. So Arizona's only 2 wins this year have been against Indy and San Francisco. And of course, you've got the overtime being a factor there as well. Last week, I picked San Francisco to beat Arizona as an upset, and they almost did it. And to tell you the truth, I'm still trying to figure out how San Francisco lost that game. But that doesn't bode well for Arizona this week because the Eagles are playing a lot better than the Niners, and they're at home. And I just don't like what's going on in Arizona right now. Again, beating Indy and the Colts and struggling to do so, that's one thing. Beating the Eagles the way they're playing, completely different story. Their offensive line is still in shambles. Maybe they get Humphreys back, whatever. Palmer's been sacked 17 times. The Eagles are probably going to sack him 5 or 6 more. He's only completing 59% of his passes, 5 touchdowns, 5 picks. That's not going to get the job done. Without their golden boy Johnson in the backfield, they're struggling big time. So you know what? I think the only thing that would concern me is does Arizona have something on the Eagles? But that is way down my list of why I would not take the Eagles in this game. And Eagles -6, I feel pretty comfortable about that.
Well, we're going to see if Humphreys plays. He at least gives them a chance. If he doesn't, we've seen what that offensive line has turned into at home. Never mind on the road. And we'll see if Fletcher Cox goes, because that's obviously key to that equation.
Sure.
He's dealing with a calf issue. If the Eagles get pressure, which they should against this offensive line, then that somewhat alleviates the situation in the back where you've got Corey Graham and Jalen Watkins dealing with hamstring issues, and they're among the strength of your secondary now with Ronald Darby still out. I mean, you're going to be able to throw the ball on the Eagles over the next few weeks. I just don't know if Carson Palmer is going to have the time to get that done on the road behind that line. So, I mean, it's an important game because the Eagles, very talented, but it's almost like they're walking on eggshells in terms of trusting them because of how much can go wrong in a short time with their lack of room for error at this point based on personnel and the issues they're dealing with.
Yeah, I think the thing I think their biggest weakness is their secondary, and I'm not so sure that could hurt them here if they apply enough pressure on Palmer. The running game is finally starting to take off. What a coincidence. Darren Sproles gets hurt, and all of a sudden the running game is gone crazy for them. Boy, you see this all the time in the NFL. These coaches, especially the young and inexperienced head coaches, they rely on these veterans for way too long for security blanket situation, just like the Jets with Matt Forte. And as soon as these guys get hurt and then the younger guys step up, boom, then all of a sudden you're like, oh, wait a second. So anyway, it's working for the Eagles. They need that. They can't rely on Carson Wentz all day long. And by the way, the last two games I just talked about have three teams that are penalized the most in the NFL. Arizona has the most penalty yards in the NFL, so that doesn't hurt them either with that offense. And that Jacksonville-Pittsburgh game, maybe that lasts about 3.5 hours, the way those two teams have been playing, because there have been a lot of flags in Jacksonville-Pittsburgh games this season. All right, let's move on to Baltimore and Oakland. And, boy, this could be an ugly game. With Joe Flacco just not playing well this season. 4 touchdowns, 6 picks, and it's been a lot worse since Yonda's been out. Maybe Yonda's the player of the team. Maybe he's the MVP, because with him, 2-0, outscoring opponents 44-10. Without him, 0-2, being outscored by their opponents 70-16. So the Ravens just look ugly right now. It's time to fire Marty Morningwig. Seems like they fire their offensive coordinators every year. But now you have Derek Carr out. EJ Manuel plays. They're a short 2-3-point favorite in this one. And the Raiders have beaten Baltimore the last 2 years, straight up and against the spread, but by only a combined 5 points. So both teams started the season 2-0. Both teams have lost the last 2.
Yeah, and outside of Flacco, Yanda was the guy that you can't lose. And, you knew that going in. Top offensive lineman, probably the smartest guy on the team. And, yeah, they haven't responded well to him being out. This is a great opportunity for Oakland's pressure to win a game with Carr gone, because that's what they're going to do. They're going to have to survive this. I think it's probably going to be closer to 6 weeks than 2. So let's cut it in half and say they'll miss 3 or 4 games. They've got to at least get 1 and preferably 2 just to avoid a mad scramble late, especially with Kansas City pulling away in the division and Denver not going anywhere. So it's a huge game for them.
And Crabtree's also banged up, which won't help EJ Manuel enough of throwing a ball to Jared Cook, because that doesn't work out. Maybe he'll throw the ball a little bit more to Cordell Patterson, because that's the thing that I don't like about what I saw and what I've seen from Oakland in the last few weeks is they have Cordell Patterson, they have Jalen Richard, and these guys never get touches. I mean, are you nuts? I mean, these guys are 2 of the most explosive players in the league, and they don't get enough touches. So they got to figure out. They have to figure out a way to get these. And you know what? I know Marshawn Lynch is Marshawn Lynch, but he's been out of football a year, and something's not working out. Now, maybe it takes time to get used to the running style and the line and all that, but this is supposed to be one of the best lines in football. And if they can't run the ball, then that's a running back problem. Why don't they give the ball to Richard a few times? Are you worried about Marshawn Lynch's feelings or something? The kid's got speed. Maybe a speed back will be able to get to the hole a little quicker.
I'm with you on giving Richard more touches, but I would not put this on Marshawn. I think it's on the line. Donald Penn with the holdout didn't help, and he hasn't looked the same, and that line really has looked suspect. So Again, this is a huge game for them. They're Super Bowl contender, and nobody's going to cry because David Carr isn't on the team right now. They've got to find a way to get wins. This is a winnable game in Baltimore.
All right, let's go to Buffalo and Cincinnati. And the Bills right now are one of the surprise teams in the NFL. And really, it's because of the fact that even when you look at this team on paper and then you watch them play, you're like, well, how does this team win games with this offense? Basically, it's okay because even LaShawn McCoy has only had one great game, which was week one. So Tyrod Taylor will run around and pick up a first down every once in a while, and then he runs around and he finds Clay, and that's their offense. And then their other offense is their defense, because the defense has been clearly the winning, the reason why that they're winning, and they've covered all four of their games. And they've been very impressive. And McDermott, of course, defensive coach, but it's that secondary. It's Tre'Davious White, who's right now the best rookie corner in the NFL. Of course, bringing in Poyer, bringing in Hyde, even Gaines, who was brought in, and just a throw-in, and the Watkins deal is playing well, even though I know it was a little bit banged up here. But you throw on the flip side with the Bengals, and okay, now they've started to play a little bit better on the road. They almost beat the Packers. They blew out Cleveland. So they're starting to look more like the old Bengals. They're a 3-point favorite in this one at home. Look, I just think the Bills, though, have been the better team. So I'm kind of conflicted here as I'm going, well, but the Bills can't keep this up, so maybe they're due for a loss. But Bills have just played better than the Bengals, and they're getting 3, so I'm kind of actually thinking maybe I should take the Bills.
Oh, I haven't seen on Inside the NFL and the sounds of the game thing, McDermott actually say, go keep our defense fresh. But that's really all they have to tell Tyron, because that's all they do.
Yep.
Go get a couple of first downs. Let the D get their wind, and they're going to come out and dominate the game, and that's how we're going to win. And that's how they've been winning games, and I think it'll continue for the duration. They've been suspect with Chantel Henderson suspended and Cordy Glenn not playing.
Yeah.
He practiced yesterday, believe it or not. So I know it's a gag now, but he's actually probably going to play this week, even though we've been saying that going on 3 weeks. And that's a big boost for the offensive line. At this point, I think that the Bills are going to be around as well.
Yeah, look, things are starting to look a lot brighter in Buffalo because their draft situation for next year, they have 2 first-round draft picks, 2 second-round draft picks, 2 third-round draft picks. With all these quarterbacks, especially if 4 of them wind up coming out, they're going to be able to land with those draft picks. They're going to be able to land whoever they want. So that means...
it can't make you feel good, but at this point, if there's a steep decline for whatever reason in New England, Buffalo's the best equipped to take over in the AFC East.
And Jordan Matthews, of course, he's out. He's been their number 1 receiver. So who do they throw to now besides Clay? Zay Jones, it seems like he's so close to making big plays every week. So maybe they could eventually get on track with each other, Taylor and Jones, because they're going to need to without Matthews.
Yeah, that's what they envisioned. I mean, he's the guy that potentially could have been the breakout receiver as far as the rookie class. I think that could potentially still happen.
All right, Tennessee and Miami, and still at this point in time, no word on Mariota, correct?
Right, still nothing on that.
Okay, so Mariota, not sure if he's going to play. This is the first home game of the season, and it's October for the Dolphins. And look, they've been outscored 40-6 in the last 2 games by the Jets and the Saints. I have to believe that this has something to do with the schedule. I have to. Maybe give it another couple of weeks, especially give me a home game, and then I'll start to figure out the Dolphins some more. But I don't want to put too much, and I don't want to grade this team too much based on no game week 1 Hurricane, West Coast, right. East Coast Jets, back to London, and then now finally at home. So it's just a lot to ask for a team. I know it's been terrible with 6 points in 2 games, but it has to be a lot of the reason. But look, if Mariota doesn't play, it's this simple. If he doesn't play and the Dolphins are favored by 7 or less, I'm taking the Dolphins. I understand Tennessee will want to run the ball all day long, but if the Dolphins don't stack the line with 11 guys, if Mariota's not playing and Matt Castle's the quarterback, then I don't know what they're doing, because Matt Castle shouldn't even be in the league anymore. So the Dolphins should win this game without Mariota.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm in agreement. It doesn't help beyond the schedule that the Dolphins starting quarterback was supposed to be calling games this year, and obviously reported late and was signed specifically because he knew the system. But that doesn't mean, other than knowing what your coaching staff wants accomplished, how you're going to actually bring those results to fruition with an entirely new supporting cast. I mean, and he has shown some chemistry with Parker that I think should fly and yield results over the next couple of months, but we have to see it first. And we'll see if Mariota doesn't play. Obviously, you run the ball yourself and let your defense win this game. And Ajayi's been banged up as well.
Yeah, that's the thing right there, is that if Ajayi was running the ball, then you would okay, all the blame's on Cutler. But Ajayi's not running the ball, and this is what the Dolphins are. Even when they have exciting receivers, we all know that the Dolphins' engine does not go unless Ajayi is running, and he's not. So, that's another question mark that we don't know. We don't know how he's going to run on Sunday. By the way, the road team has won both games the last 2 years that these two teams have played each other. So this will be the third straight year that these two teams have played each other. Titans did rush for 235 last year against the Dolphins. Mariota had 3 touchdowns passing, 1 rushing, but of course he will not play this week. Okay, or may not play this week. Okay, let's go to the Chargers and the Giants as we have ourselves a battle of winless teams. And I wonder how much longer it's going to take for Giant fans to start calling out for Sean Payton to come back to New York. If the Giants keep losing games, they're a 3.5 point favorite against the Chargers. Look, I haven't changed my mind at all about the Chargers. I said it last week. I mean, the coaching situation right now, Anthony Lynn, I don't trust at all. I think he's in way over his head. You never know what you're going to get with these assistant coaches that are first-time head coaches. Obviously, he has no idea what he's doing. Tom Telesco has a bad track record of hiring coaches. He's done a pretty good job with personnel, terrible job hiring head coaches. West Coast team, East Coast game, early game. Giants, I think, at least to me, have looked a little bit better, I think, in losing their games than the Chargers have, especially with Beckham now playing more. I know there's some banged-up defensive players for the Giants in this one, and maybe Richburg, the center, who's actually their best lineman, and that's not a good deal for the Giants against that pass rush of the Chargers. But I'm going to take the Giants, 3 points home. But knowing the Giants and knowing both of these teams, Giants win, don't cover.
Well, I mean, for starters, both of these teams are going to feel like they're at home. So, the Chargers are used to working in a hostile environment.
Yeah.
So I don't think that bothers them. But, it's going to depend on whether Phillip Rivers can play sharp football behind an offensive line that's betraying him again, that has, again, been decimated by injuries. Same old story there. I think, we've talked about Lynn's decisions late in games that they could have won, but again, they were in the Eagles game last week. They were in the Chiefs game despite all the turnovers. This is a football team that can turn the corner because they've got elite pass rushers, and Hayward's doing a great job in the secondary. But obviously, it hasn't come to fruition. We haven't seen a healthy Melvin Gordon yet. For the Giants, I think you've got major issues where Vernon and Pierre Paul are sitting out of practice.
Mm-hmm.
Both should play, but neither is healthy. You mentioned the Richburg injury. So Spagnuolo allowed the team to go through their film session to breed accountability, and maybe that'll be a factor here. Goodson being back definitely helps. He's established himself as a young leader in the middle of that defense. So, it's a situation where the Giants have to win this game. Not should, they have to, but I'm not convinced that they will.
Yeah, because I think out of these two teams, I think that the Giants are the team that still has a shot. They can get a win here. I think they have the talent to kind of get going. And you know what? I also think that after what I saw last week when Perkins went out, another situation, one guy goes out, another guy comes in, Gallman looked better. He just did. And the reason is because he's not juking and jiving and looking for a hole like Perkins. Gallman is just a straight ahead runner. So they actually looked a lot better running the ball last week. It wasn't a great performance, but it was significant enough in my mind that I think Gallman should get more carries for the Giants moving forward, at least in the short term. So anyway, I don't think the Giants season is over, but they definitely have to win this game. Okay, Minnesota and the Bears. Not sure why the Bears get back-to-back primetime games. Somebody's got to. I have no idea. I'm speechless. I guess Chicago market. I don't know. But anyway, Bears get Monday night against Minnesota, and I guess we're all waiting. Of course, is Sam Bradford going to play and all that stuff? Michael Floyd returns. I do think that when Bradford comes back, that Floyd, I think if his head's on straight, I think he could be a good addition and a good third addition, and maybe even a fourth, depending if Treadwell ever gets his act together. And throw in Rudolph as well. But without Cook, that's just such a huge injury for this team. Latavius Murray is just a body. That's going to be big if there's no Cook and no Bradford, especially because, as we mentioned last week, or a couple weeks ago, but we mentioned recently that the Bears have actually played pretty good at home. I mean, they almost beat Atlanta and they beat Pittsburgh, so they're a different team at home. They get a little bit of a tick up because of Trubisky, so there'll be some excitement at home with getting the rookie in there. So for me, if Bradford doesn't play, tell you the truth, I actually like the Bears.
Well, Case Keenum looked terrible last week after looking extremely sharp the week prior, and I think that's going to be
the way it is.
What we get from him.
Yep.
Very inconsistent.
Yep.
But I won't write him off in terms of, he's out there. I just don't feel comfortable backing, because when he gets into a rhythm, he can move them. Mm-hmm. And I also like Latavius Murray in terms of having a chip on his shoulder and getting a second chance. There's a reason, obviously, that he's not a starter and was let go by Oakland. But I think he can give them a boost, at least in the short term. We'll see what happens once they get Jerick McKinnon healthy, and they just signed Ridley, so probably more by committee. But for this game, it's going to fall on his shoulders, and they're going to have to control possession, because that's what Chicago wants to do. They want to keep pressure off Trubisky and run their elite back. So I would guess that this is going to be a game that everybody complains about the next morning, because it's a lot of run and probably a low score.
By the way, Minnesota 4-1 last 5 versus Chicago, even though the Bears have covered 3 of those 5. Teams did split last year, winning at home both games. Vikings only the second road game this season. Their other road game was the game where they looked pretty ugly in Case Keenum's first start in Pittsburgh, and this is the second of 2 divisional matchups in Week 5. The other, Seattle.
This is the first game they'll have a chance to win, because they didn't get the news on Bradford till Saturday. Keenan didn't know until the 12 o'clock hour that he was starting. So, they've got a better shot. And if Bradford is going to be ruled out, they even have an extra day to prepare.
All right. Now let's go to the final 2 games, Jets and Cleveland, and San Francisco, Indianapolis. So unless you're in those towns, no, you're not going to be watching this one or either one of these games. Jets, Cleveland, this one's about a pick 'em. And the Jets have actually played Cleveland a bunch recently. They've beaten them straight up against the spread last 2 years. 4-0 straight up against the spread since 2010. Obviously, they're sky high following back-to-back wins. Now a chance to go 3-2. Cleveland, Kaiser just isn't playing well. 51% completion percentage, 3 touchdowns, 8 picks. They do get Myles Garrett back. That's huge. Maybe that lights fire home game and all that kind of stuff. But look, I don't know. Unless the Jets think that they're too good for Cleveland after 2 wins, which could happen, then okay, maybe this is a perfect spot for Cleveland to get their first win. But if the Jets just play well, like they played the last 2 weeks, they're just a better team right now. Kaiser just doesn't look good. And you know what? I understand what they're trying to do with Kaiser. But it's not the worst idea in the world to have him sit for a couple of weeks, because if he keeps playing like this for another week or 2, he does need to sit. And it's not like Kessler played awful when he played. Get him in there, give Kaiser a rest. But they're hoping that Kaiser can have one good game at least to get his confidence going again.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on the other side of that. Unless he gets hurt, I think you have to just throw him out there, because you've already made that decision. Then you open it back up to where Kessler's a part of the equation. He's not. You made the decision in preseason that he's going to be a backup. That's all he'll ever be, and Kaiser might be something.
Well, let me ask you a question. If the Bears because this would be interesting. Let's say the Browns. Let's say the Browns have the first pick in the draft, or the second or third or whatever.
Right.
And let's say first. And let's say that now chances are they might want to, okay, if we believe, now look, there's a lot's going to depend on Kaiser and how he plays. But let's just say Kaiser plays like this all year. Okay. So do you draft a quarterback, one of those guys, or do you draft Barkley?
No, I think you draft a quarterback. And I think that's another reason why Kaiser has to be the guy so long as he's not hurt, because you've already made the decision that Kessler's not. You're rolling the dice on Kaiser, but if he's not, it's not. Especially since you've stockpiled draft picks, it's not huge that you gambled on somebody that didn't pan out, and then here comes the next quote unquote sure thing. But ideally, he figures it out over the course of 16 weeks to the point where you're comfortable that at least he's got it mentally to grow.
Sure.
And then you can take whoever you want at one, or even shop the pick, considering the market for a quarterback class that's so esteemed.
So he'd have to play well enough, though, to convince you that he's their starter moving forward, and then you would consider taking Barkley.
Yeah, and instead of you, I would say Hugh. he's got to convince Hugh, not me.
That's true.
But so yeah, and I think
if Hugh's still around, if Hugh's still around,
huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, but bottom line, if Hugh Jackson says I can grow forward with this kid, then you pull the trigger on something else.
All right, and then finally, San Francisco, Indianapolis, they get Ryan Kelly back to Colts too, so that helps their offensive line. Bond was inserted into the lineup. Nobody expected that. He's on IR, so I don't really think that matters much. He wasn't a top lineman anyway. For San Francisco, they've covered 3 straight games, so they have been competitive. But boy, they just kept sticking there. I mean, every time they had a chance to get in the end zone or make a big play and beat Arizona, it was either penalties or drop passes from Aldrick Robinson, who I would completely sit on the bench. But Indianapolis, even though they lost last week, as we talked about, leading at halftime, I like the way they're kind of playing compared to San Francisco. I just think San Francisco is just doing so many just dumb things that bad teams do. And I'm not seeing as much as the Colts. Colts are just making bad plays at times that guys make, including Brissett. But I think that they're just showing me a little bit more than the Niners right now.
Well, I mean, to me, it's a toss-up. I think Jacoby Brissett's been decent. I would put him in the Kaiser category if I was evaluating a team starting quarterback. That's something he could grow into, where Scott Tolzien obviously can't anymore. And so you continue with him until Luck is ready. And he's given the offense enough of a spark where T.Y. Hilton looks like himself again. But on the other end, I think Hoyer's done decently enough to where you can trust, that he'll continue getting Garcon the ball, that they'll continue feeding Gore, and that the offense will look decent and they'll have a chance to win. So to me, this is a toss-up game. The 49ers have looked much better, and they'll probably be healthier on defense.
All right, and we have no idea, of course, when Luck is coming back. That's another mystery. By the way, 4 teams off this week with byes. Atlanta will take on Miami next week. So another reason why Miami would definitely like to get a win this week. Denver will take on the Giants next week. Same thing with the Giants. New Orleans takes on Detroit, and Washington will take on San Francisco. So those are the 4 teams out this week: Atlanta, Denver, New Orleans, and Washington. So how is everything going on for you? It's NFL Essentials article out yet? What do you got out, Tony?
The Thursday Night Football preview is out.
Okay.
And ready for your consumption with Patriots Bucks. And then Friday, probably mid-afternoon, after we get some word on official injury reports, and Friday's the key day, obviously, that'll go out. And again, I think a lot of games are going to hinge on what decisions are made regarding injuries, none more so than Green Bay and Dallas.
All right, Tony. So once again, you can check out his work at VegasInsider.com. Follow him on Twitter at Tony Mejia NBA. So, Tony, appreciate your time as always. Enjoy the football this week, and we'll talk to you next week for Week 6.
All right, sounds good, Greg. Happy Week 5.
You too. All right, that's Tony Mejia joining us, and he's here, of course, to join us all season long here on the Ourlads Football Radio Network. All right, so that is going to do it for our show today. We'll see you next Thursday for Week 6. You can check out all our on-demand shows, including this one, on YouTube or iTunes under Prime Sports Network. If you'd like to participate on the show, you can send your tweets at PrimeSN. Send messages. You get it. Don't forget to check out Ourlads.com for the best NFL and college football depth charts in the business. I'm your host, Greg DePalma. We'll see you at 6:30 for more Ourlads Football Network programming. And actually, I just found out that we might be doing the fantasy football show a little bit later tonight, so keep that in mind. We'll also talk college football tomorrow as we preview the weekend in the college game. So for Tony Mejia, I'm Greg DePalma. Thanks for tuning in to the Ourlads Football Radio Network, and we'll see you next time.
Another scene, a package like to keep us trapped in greed. A green belts wrapped around our minds, an endless red tape to keep the truth confused.